Okay, hello. Thanks for joining the 2023 Kick-off Meetup. And let's talk about this year's competition. So for those of you who don't know the competition, it runs for a month. This is the 12th edition, 12th yearly edition, where you have a whole month to create a game in 13 kilobytes zipped. So that's more resources than unzipped, but it's still quite a challenge. This year's partners include Pocky, OP Games, Game7, GitHub, Crazy Games, Flux, Arcadia, Addicting Games, GSJJ, Lightmint, and 8s. And the theme that was just announced a few hours ago, 13th century, had an interesting reception. So some folks were like, what? Why? The cool thing is, after those few hours, people actually started getting some cool ideas already. So it's not like you already lost half a day figuring out what to do with it, but because we have a whole month, you can totally spend a few days brainstorming. So it's quite challenging, I would say, definitely challenging. But given how creative you approached previous themes, I'm sure there will be plenty of cool games. I know most of you focus on the 13th century, but I also mentioned in the blog post that you can actually try to squeeze something about time travel, or maybe digging up artifacts from that era, or something like that. If you go outside the box, maybe you will come up with something original. But staying within the 13th century is probably, it will work in most of the cases. But then it's all the game mechanics you can imagine should fit in some way. So you should be fine. This is the link in which you can see this is the Wikipedia page with games set in the 13th century for some inspiration. So it's not only getting inspiration from what actually happened in the 13th century, but also some of the games that happened in that setting. So before I move on, do you have any specific feedback or like opinions about the theme that you would like to share? Do you like it? Don't like it? You hate it? You're not gonna participate because of the theme? So you're kind of okay. Cool. So this year's categories, if you noticed, we do have WebXR and decentralized categories. So we don't have the web monetization one because of the only web monetization API provider, Coil, has shut down. The Interledger Foundation is working on something, so it might return next year or later, but it's uncertain. I also took down the server category because it was community driven for the past few years, and we didn't come to a conclusion what to do next when Heroku closed the free tier service. So if we manage to come up with something real quick, it might return this year already, but it seems we will see what happens with the platforms available and if people really want to have the server category back or not. The unfinished category is still there, so if you happen to not finish your entry on time, you can still submit to show that you are working on something, and unfinished category entries won't be judged. But we did get a few since when the category was introduced in 2021. So that's always cool because those unfinished games still look quite cool and they can still be worked on later on after the competition ends. So it's cool to show that you worked on something even if you're unfinished. So the decentralized category I mentioned will be a bit different than last year. It still revolves around blockchain technologies and Web3, but we're kind of opening it more. So if you actually get inspired by some NFT collections, want to add something, we kind of had this in Game Dev JS Jam this year already, in which the entries weren't using any actual decentralized technology, but people were implementing some fancy characters or lore of some collections. So that's still doable. You can still win some prizes with that to keep the decentralized category this year. But it's entirely optional. You can totally ignore it if you don't want to participate in that. We have a bunch of prizes. I really like the fact that we have Jump Tracks game, which is actually a game that was created on top of the 2018's entry. So this will be like 4th or 5th game that was released on Steam. We had Glitch Buster and Evil Glitch, and I think some more entries as well. So it's great to see something that was being worked on for the competition then being released as a full game. So you can actually win 20 licenses of Jump Tracks game by participating. So that's really cool. This year's t-shirts, as usual, every single year we have different t-shirt designs. This is this year's. I hope you like it. I like it a lot, so can't wait to see it being printed. And we usually have some gadgets. You can see the patch and the pin in the background. But we decided to go with like literal physical medals. Only for top 13, but let's see how that works. But given we are running out of gadget ideas, I thought that printing an actual metal medal is pretty nice to have. So here we are. The list of experts that are on the website, they will be focusing on the usual things, talking what went good in your entry and what could have been improved. So that's the whole point of them playing the games in the second part of the competition after you submit your entries. And keep in mind, we have the resources page. It's quite long already. There is a whole lot of different resources that you can go through. The latest additions from last year are js13k breakouts, which are breakout games made by the authors of the most popular engines used in the competition. So we have Stephen Lambert's Contra, we have Frank Force's Little.js, and Staś Pawolepsz's Good Luck. So you can check the sources of an example breakout game made in all those three tools, and you can compare how those are built, and you can choose the best style you prefer to use those, or you can, of course, totally ignore this and build something from scratch without any engines, which is also possible, but sometimes it's easier to start with something that already works and have offers some cool functionalities. JS breakouts could be found on GitHub. As all the entries from all the previous years, don't forget about being able to look back at all the entries, search for their source code, and see how people actually build those entries, which is also really cool. So the tips and tricks section, which is basically just a bunch of reminders from my side, which I wanted to tell you. So if you don't have your own starter or template, you can find some. There are dozens of them available with totally different setups. You can start one yourself, or you can look for other tools and pick what will work for you. Already mentioned the time for brainstorming. The theme this year is challenging, so you can totally think about ideas that would work for the game that you would like to build. So you definitely have time to think about it. You don't have to start coding today or tomorrow. You have a whole month for that. So it's not like 48-hour hackathon in the basement with energy drinks and pizza. You can actually have your own life. You can code in the evenings, you can code in the weekends, or you can code during your working day if your boss is not looking. So there are always opportunities for that. I know people are taking like a week vacations just to sit and create something for the competition. That's also possible. You can still go for 2 weeks vacations, return, and then still submit an entry to the competition. So while you are doing that, it's important to have your prototype as soon as possible, the prototype that works. So whenever you are adding something, if it's not working, you can revert back to the previous build, previous version. It's definitely better than working on something 29 days, not even knowing it will start, and then trying to frantically fix it. Because with something small, you can iterate, you can add small things, see that it works, and then at some point decide that you don't need more features, you can polish what you have. Hiding in the basement topic. Over the years, we have seen that sharing your progress, asking for feedback works. The best entries, the authors of the best entries did that a lot, said that they got very good feedback from other participants. The most famous case is difficulty setting, because if you're playing your own game over and over again, to make it challenging for you, you make it difficult, which will be really, really difficult for people that will be seeing that game for the first time. So confronting what you built with folks that are seeing the game for the first time in their lives it's quite important to have as many happy players as possible. To do that, it's kind of important to focus on keeping the one cool core mechanic in your entry. Don't add too many things. Focus on having fun with that one core mechanic and seeing how far you can go with it. Of course, if you finish what you're building and you still have time and space, you can add more things, more features, more bonuses, levels, or whatnot. But it reverts back to having that prototype that works, on which you can iterate. And the most important part is no, it's not that. The next one is the most important. This one is about documenting your progress. So you can actually write a postmortem, which is like a blog post about what went good, what could have been better. You can either do that afterwards, trying to remember what you did, but many folks write that while they code, or at least keep some notes. So it's a lot easier, and then it's a lot more, it gets great insight into your thinking and the progress you made. So you can read it later, or other people can actually read your issues, how you overcome the problems you had, or fix bugs. So it's a great way to not only explain why the game looks like this, or have features or don't have some features, but you can reach many people after who will be reading those postmortems after like few years working on their own entries. And the last one is to have fun. Because it's not the job you have to do, it's something you want to spend your free time. So definitely come up with something crazy, something that you wouldn't work during your day job or something like that. So I do hope you will have fun building games for this competition. Okay, so I do have quiz right after that, but that's it for the recording that will be published on YouTube. So thank you for listening, and I'm turning off the recording.